Hey, Mike with Daycare here, and are you looking to keep everyone in your childcare program happy and healthy this year? Well, in today's video, I'll be walking you through how to create a daycare sick policy, so let's get into it. Now, before we jump into the specific steps on how you create the policy, the first thing you want to consider is why should you create a policy? Well, again, as I mentioned earlier, it can really help you keep your center safe, keep the children safe, keep your staff safe, and even keep the parents and community safe, because you'll help prevent the spread of different viruses and infection throughout your childcare program. And having a sick policy is really the starting point to keeping your program safe from illness. Alright, so let's jump into the specific steps on how to create your sick policy. And the first one is to start off by checking specific state policies where your center is located. A lot of states will actually map out how childcare centers and childcare programs have to regulate their sick policy. And so some of the basics could include that you need to prevent children from being in your center if they can't perform basic activities because of their illness, if the child has an excessive fever, if they have an undiagnosed rash, or if they have lice or ringworm or a variety of other issues. That can be a great starting point to build the foundation of your sick policy. And you definitely need to adhere to those because, again, those are state regulations in your area. On top of that, the next step you want to do is look for any specific CDC regulations. So again, this is the Center for Disease Control, and they also have different policies in place and recommendations and guidelines they suggest that you follow in your childcare sick policy. The next thing you want to include in your sick policy, or at least actively promote in your program, are healthy tips for parents and children. And so again, this can be things like explaining washing hands to the children. It can be screening for fevers, both on the parent and on your end before children come into your center, if of course the children look sick. You can also focus on disinfecting different clothing and tablecloths or bedding you might use throughout your center. And again, passing on that recommendation to parents if children are sick or have possibly encountered someone that may be sick, making sure they take those steps. You can also teach children about covering coughs and sneezes, or again, telling parents they need to educate their children on that and to practice it when they're outside of the center. Another thing you want to include in your sick policy are important terms or specific policies on certain illnesses that children may have. So for example, you definitely want to include an exclusion policy, which basically means when kids should stay home and not actually come to your center, or when they need to leave the center if a certain illness arises. So some different examples might include a fever policy or a rash policy, or if children have diarrhea or are vomiting. You also might include things like a COVID policy or a lice policy. You might even have a common cold policy, and the list can really go on and on. So if there's specific illnesses that you encounter a lot in your center, you likely want to have a policy around it or some type of general policy that will include all of those things. Another key thing to include is a medication administration policy. So again, several of the children in your program might need to take ongoing medications, and so you want to have a policy in place so parents know what to do, what they need to provide, and then also include proper guidance on how you can administer those medications safely to the children. So it could include things like making sure medication is in its original packaging when it's sent to your center, making sure that the medication is labeled with a child's name. You also want to make sure that all the physician instructions are included with the medication so staff of the program can administer these medications safely. You also might want to include any handling specifics, like if a medication needs to be refrigerated or needs to be taken with food, and different things like that. Another aspect you want to include is a sick child pickup policy. So again, if a child does get sick in your center, or maybe it doesn't have noticeable symptoms when they show up, but throughout the day they get progressively worse, and you need to send them home, you want to have a policy in place of what happens to that child and when the parents have to pick them up. So likely you'll want the parents to pick up these children immediately, but you also might have some minimal quarantine type activity where you make sure the sick children stay in a specific room until they're picked up. This way you can help protect the other staff and kids throughout your program. And the final step of your sick policy is once it's built, you want to make sure that it's prominently displayed where parents can easily access it and your staff can easily access it as well. So some of the key places you want to include it would be having it highlighted on your website. If you send out a regular parent newsletter, maybe you want to include that on the bottom so parents can easily access that on a regular basis. You want to have it on where parents pay their bills or easily accessible through that area, because likely that's somewhere they go on a regular basis, so they'll easily see it if they do need to access it. You want to include it in any type of new enrollment package. So if you give out different documents when a new student starts at your program, you want to include your sick policy with that as well. And any other area that you think that parents will frequently see this policy, with a general idea that the easier it is for parents and staff to access it, the more likely it is that parents and staff will utilize this policy to help keep your center safe. Well, again, hopefully you enjoyed these tips on building a daycare sick policy and how you can utilize a sick policy in your childcare program. If you did, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new videos we put out. And if you'd like to expand and grow your childcare program faster, we put together an ultimate guide to childcare management that will help you optimize and automate your childcare management system, which can help you improve enrollments, boost efficiency, and streamline your childcare business, which can all help you grow your program faster. So if you'd like to download that guide, there'll be a link in the description below where you can do so. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.